began reading the Matchbook diary. Today we are going to finish the text. How come this one's empty? I'll tell you why. When we got off on Ellis Island, they didn't want to let in anybody sick, especially people with eye diseases. All morning I'd been crying because of the button hook man. When I saw him, I screamed. He grabbed me and used the handle to roll up my eyelid and look underneath. "Red," he said. "He can't come in." My mother fainted. My oldest sister found a doctor who spoke Italian and told him my eyes were red from crying. She gave me peppermint candies to calm me down. Later, a new doctor checked me, using his finger. That one let me pass. I put a candy in the box. Then, the next week, I ate it. My father met us. Everyone cried. I smelled his mustache to see if it was really him. We took a boat to New York, then a train somewhere else. The next day, we started work in the canneries. All 7 of us, cutting fish all day. Always a man watching to make sure we weren't slowing down. They gave us old, falling-apart sheds to live in, as crowded as the ship. "You didn't have your own room?" "No, sweetheart." I want you to look at the picture of the family now that they are together again. What do you think everyone is feeling? Canning fish, sorting peaches, shelling peas, then down to the south, peeling shrimp and opening oyster shells, wherever there was work. We moved so often I could barely remember where I was or where I'd been. That's why I started saving bits of newspapers, so that someday I could look back and say I was in that exact place on that exact day. I still love newspapers. Instead of jewels, my mother and sisters had fish scales on their arms. The strange thing was, when we walked down a street and maybe past a grocery, the same people who bought our cans of sardines wouldn't look at us. Back then, some people didn't want Italians here. Sometimes boys threw rocks. That's how my tooth got here. That's my favorite box. My first baseball game. I didn't understand it, why the men were running, but I was in heaven not to be working and to sit by my father. Under the grandstands, I found more matchboxes. Then, in a clump of grass, a quarter. That meant we could go again. To me, it seemed like one of the lumps of gold people said we'd find. The man says that finding the quarter so he could go to the game was like finding a lump of gold. What would be a lump of gold discovery for you? I think I was 8 when we got an apartment and all rolled cigars at the kitchen table. A few years later, we switched to shelling nuts for restaurants, day and night. Then my father got hired at a foundry in Pittsburgh, making railroad parts. My sisters sewed in a factory. My mother told my father I should go to school. She'd seen me staring at signs and circus posters, trying to understand. Sometimes I'd draw letters with a piece of coal. She wanted me to learn and teach my sisters. Big argument. Days and weeks. Who won the argument? I'll give you a hint. I went to school. It was hard. English seemed as crazy as baseball. I had to sit with the little kids. They made fun of how I talked, but I learned to read and write. What they taught us during the day, I taught my sisters at night. Then I went to a different school where I learned typesetting, picking out the lead letters from their compartments. That's how everything was printed before computers. I had good eyes from always looking for little things for my matchboxes. I became a printer. Did you stop the Matchbox diary? In a way, I never did. After 30 years of printing, I opened a bookshop. Books are like newspapers. They show where you've been. Then I bought and sold antiques, old things that people had saved for years, filled with stories, other people's diaries. I wish I could write a diary. Do you go to school yet? To kindergarten. Lucky girl. You'll be writing before you know it. Till then, I'll bet you're a good collector. like me. On the last page of the book, we see the little girl starting her own collection of memories in a little container. What do you think she has learned from her great-grandfather? In this book, the great-grandfather kept all kinds of objects in his matchbook diary as a way of collecting his memories. I want you to think about these two questions that we will discuss in our Zoom today. How does thinking about our memories help us celebrate the experiences we've had in our lives? And also, which of the objects do you think helped the great-grandfather remember joyful times? Why do you think the great-grandfather also held on to objects that reminded him of more challenging times? I look forward to discussing with you during our Zoom at 11 o'clock today.